Welcome back to the final day of the Senior Bowl coverage. I am editing some of my rankings. Like I noticed Matthew Golden, the Texas receiver that went off in the playoff, wasn't in my rankings. I still like Isaiah Bond better, but Golden is the consensus wide receiver one. So all the offensive rankings are done. I literally only have to put one defensive tackle in the rankings, and then I'm done with the defensive tackles. So I've been doing that, killing time. But why don't I break down the conference realignment rumors I heard last night? Because I'm sure you're curious about that. Because we're still seeing players warm up. If we get some one-on-one drills, we'll do those. I'll break those down. But as far as conference realignment, I've heard the team, and according to this insider, ESPN is the one making all the decisions on conference realignment for ratings. They own the SEC. They own the ACC. They want North Carolina in the SEC. And Bill Belichick is the big reason why. And if you think about it, SEC is the power conference in football. It's been the power conference in men's basketball this year. And it's the power conference in men's baseball. It's also the power conference in women's softball too. And, you know, it's probably the second best conference behind the ACC in women's soccer. And they don't have a conference for men's soccer. But North Carolina is a flagship program, William. It doesn't matter what sport they are in. They don't have a hockey program, but they're pretty much a powerhouse in every other sport, whether it's football, basketball, college baseball. They were the runner-up to Florida State, made the College World Series this past year. They are one of the flagship teams in both men's and women's soccer. So for the SEC, that is the school they should target, in my opinion. If you want a school that's going to be competitive in a variety of sports, North Carolina is a good choice, especially with Belichick there. I think that brings in a lot of ratings. But what we're hearing is North Carolina will not go to the SEC without North Carolina State. I figured they would want to bring Duke in because Duke, North Carolina, that is to college basketball what Ohio State, Michigan is to football. You'd figure they want to bring Duke in, but no. They want North Carolina State, and there's also rumors that the SEC wants Clemson and Florida State. The Big Ten, do you want to talk about this briefly before I get to what I'm hearing with the Big Ten? Or
Oh, I mean, I think you have that 100% right on UNC. I mean, they've always been something decent. The last few years of football hasn't been up, but Bill Belichick, that's going to draw plenty of ratings right there. Like you said, and I mean, Drake May, for one, his whole family, was in baseball and everything else at UNC. That's why he went there instead of some, big name school, being that legacy kind of guy. But, I, like you said, Duke kind of just goes over towards college basketball, and that probably doesn't draw near as much money as in-state rivalry that, North Carolina State actually brings into it. So I can see why they're doing it from that point of view. I'll just leave it
yeah,
at
but
that.
they would kill one of the greatest rivalries with North Carolina and Duke if they brought them over. But Duke's not being considered for the SEC at this time. Big Ten, they're looking at three schools. They're looking at Notre Dame. Notre Dame's probably going to remain a football independent and an ACC team in basketball and men's soccer. But Big Ten is looking at bringing Notre Dame over. They want them for all the sports, but they're looking at Notre Dame as a candidate. If Notre Dame wanted to join a conference full time, they would leave the ACC and go to the Big Ten for the other sports, and they'd be Big Ten for football. But I think Notre Dame wants to remain an independent, and I'm pretty certain on that. The other two schools the Big Ten is looking at are the Florida schools, Miami, Florida, and Florida State. And Florida State's the wild card here, William, because I'm hearing the SEC and the Big Ten both want Florida State, and they're going to bring North Carolina and North Carolina State over. But are they going to go from 18 to 20, or are they going to go from 16 to 20 or 16 to 18? Because the SEC and the Big Ten are discussing a potential partnership in February, an interconference partnership where they'd play each other in week 1 and they'd start in week 0. There's a lot of things they're discussing as far as a potential partnership goes, a conference partnership. and both teams want to have the same amount of teams in each conference. So if the SEC poaches 4 teams from the ACC, the Big Ten will probably poach 2 teams from the ACC. And you see how that has the ripple effect, William, because Florida State, Miami are the 2 teams the Big Ten wants. And the SEC wants North Carolina State, Clemson, and Florida State in that order. Honestly, I hope they take Duke. The SEC, they take Duke, and Florida State and Miami go to the Big Ten if that's the case. That way the rivalries stay intact. The Florida State-Miami rivalry for football and the Duke, North Carolina rivalry for college basketball. Those are the 2 rivalries I do not want ESPN to fuck with.
The one thing that I see coming out of that is the fact that what is that going to do to the college football playoffs? I mean, with that, there's going to be so many teams in the SEC. Like you said, Florida State, North Carolina, everything else, NC State. I mean, that's going to
They're
be
going to go to a
counterproductive to that.
14-team playoff where the SEC and Big Ten are guaranteed 4 teams each. And what I think that means is they're going to have a 3rd place and 4th place game. One of my friends on YouTube, I don't know if I could call him a friend, but one of these YouTubers I know said that they're going to have a 3rd place and 4th place conference title game in the SEC in the future. And they're going to make it like a doubleheader to where it's a qualifier for the college football playoff. And that makes total sense because why have the best and second best SEC team play in a meaningless conference title game when they're both pretty much guaranteed in the 14-team playoff? You have a 3rd place and 4th place game instead, and you make it a doubleheader and you make more money in the process.
I'm wondering how far that can actually go because of, like I said, the difference between, the number 1 and the number 25 ranked team in the country is completely insane, and when they're adding teams to the playoff like that, there's going to be more blowouts. They're going to have to, work that all out. I mean, they need to come up with something and just all kind of work together. But, I feel this is a media and this is colleges working, that are trying to pump up their own products. So, it's one of those things where they're kind of all going after whatever will make them the most money. I mean, that's what's key in this. And
if North Carolina and North Carolina State are the only teams to go to the SEC, they'll probably start the partnership with 18 teams in the SEC, 18 teams in the Big Ten, which is what the Big Ten's currently at. But if they go for 4 teams, the Big Ten's probably going to grab 2 teams as well. So we're going to see 2 to 6 new teams in the ACC. And the ACC already has 15 teams for football. I think they have, I think they have 15 for soccer as well, but I think they have 14 for football. Yeah, because they were at 12 and then they added Cal and Stanford and SMU to get to 15. But since Florida State and Miami do not have men's soccer teams, I think there's 15 ACC teams with Notre Dame replacing one of those 2. But regardless, I think what will happen is if the 3 teams the ACC's looking at, if they lose up to 6 teams, South Florida, they play at Raymond James Stadium. They're getting their own brand new college on-campus stadium soon, so they're obviously one of the candidates. The other is Tulane, but I think the most obvious candidate to join the ACC, and you're free to use this as a hot take video, William, because it's Memphis. Memphis is the most obvious candidate to join the ACC, and it is blatantly obvious. It's not subtly obvious. It's blatantly obvious because they've got a good football program. They got a basketball team that was coached by Penny Hardaway before he got fired last year, one of the better basketball programs in the country. And yeah, Memphis is a school with a men's soccer team. So if there's a lot of turnover, like North Carolina State, Clemson, all have men's soccer teams. So if the ACC loses those 3 teams, they go from 15 to 12 teams in men's soccer. So you're going to need 1 or 2 men's soccer teams to come in and replace the departing teams. Memphis has a men's soccer team. They're an obvious number 1 candidate to join the ACC for that reason. But 3 other schools that are being looked at. One is James Madison. James Madison is one of the group of 5 schools that's being looked at for expansion, along with East Carolina. They're being looked at as an ACC team for football and basketball. And then there was one other program that's not just a football and basketball program, but it's a soccer program. I can't really remember what it is at the top of my head, though, William. I can't. I'm trying to remember. I can't remember who it is, though. I
I'm
wish
trying to
I
remember
knew. I just can't remember at the top of my head, because what's going to happen with these ACC teams that go to the SEC, they're going to go to the Sun Belt for soccer, because Marshall and West Virginia is the big rivalry in the Sun Belt Conference for men's soccer. So basically all the ACC teams that go to the SEC for football and basketball, they're probably going to end up in the Sun Belt for men's soccer, because that's where South Carolina plays men's soccer. They're the only SEC team with a men's soccer program, and they play in the Sun Belt, South Carolina Gamecocks. So I'm guessing North Carolina, if the ACC goes to football, if the ACC teams go to the SEC for football and basketball, they're going to go to the Sun Belt for men's soccer, because they're not going to, those schools that are making that much money, they're not going to fold their soccer programs just because they're not as profitable, William. We both know that.
Right. Yeah. Well,
So,
soccer, I was just
Sun
telling
Belt's
my
going
mom
to
that this
benefit
morning.
from the ACC moving to the SEC. If you get what I'm saying, the Sun Belt Conference actually benefits slightly from a financial standpoint.
Yeah. And, soccer is the biggest sport in the world. So, I mean, there is that. So that you're 100% right on that. Yeah, I'm trying to.
Well, that's what I'm
else is
hearing
in
as
there.
far as the conference realignment goes. Nothing's official yet. This is all merely speculation, but
It's a lot of good information, man.
I wish I could provide more information. I'm sorry I can't.
Oh, I don't think anybody has much more than that, Chris. So there's that.
I mean, it was more entertaining than the hockey game I watched. I mean, two future number one
Yeah, how'd
picks.
that go?
It was, first period, the Everett Silvertips have Landon DuPont, a 15-year-old defenseman who's projected to go number 1 in 27. And for the first 17 minutes of that game, he kept the Medicine Hat Tigers scoreless. Carter Bear, a top 15 pick in this year's NHL, drafted the first goal. But once the Medicine Hat Tigers tied the game, they took over the contest. And Gavin McKenna, projected number 1 pick in 26, had a hat trick. 2 of his 3 goals were shorthanded, meaning 4 of the 5 guys were on the ice. And instead, 4 of the 5 guys are on the ice, and he still found a way to score with 1 less player on the ice on his team. So he's at a disadvantage. He still found a way to score 2 goals with 1 less player on his team on the ice. So, yeah, that's pretty good for him. And Joey and I, we've been talking about McKenna, I think 3 or 4 times on the podcast now. So the fact that he could score 2 of his 3 goals shorthanded without a man on the ice, that definitely helps his stock. I think McKenna and DuPont, you could argue both players would be number 1 in this year's draft. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens with those two. But let's get back to some scouting here. We're starting to see the bag drills at the Senior Bowl. We're starting to see some QBs throw. We're starting to see some drills. No more stalling, no more goofing around. We are starting to see some serious drills, and I like that.
You know what I saw this morning? I saw CBS Sports trying to save face with Jackson Dart and say that he's playing his way up. And it's like, that might be a little bit, after the last few days of what he's had going on, that might be a little bit of a reach, I mean, like I said, he has the potential. He can do all those things, but like I said, he's streaky. And
QBs are going to get overdrafted this year. That's the problem, William. QBs are going to get overdrafted. Yeah. Cam Ward's the only guy I have a round 1 grade on. I've got a late round 2nd grade on Shedeur Sanders. I've got him at like 53 on my board. He's going to go in the top 5. I've got Quinn Ewers in round 3. He might go in round 2 now, simply due to the demand for the position, due to the scarcity for the position. I've got Milrow at number 4 and Will Howard at 5. But I've got Dart at 6. But Dart could go in round 3 or round 4 at this rate. We really don't know what's going to happen with Dart or Howard yet. Those are the 2 wild cards after. I think Milrow's locked into round 3. I know he did better at the end of day 2. He did. There's some people that still believe Milrow's going to go in round 1. He had 1.5 really bad practices. 1.5. He had a really bad first day, and the second half of day 2 he was bad. But he did rebound at the end of day 2 after you left the call, William. There was a play where Milrow went through 4 out of 6 progressions and completed a pass. And that's what you wanted to see from Jalen Milrow in Mobile this week. That there. Go ahead.
The one thing with Jalen Milroe is, that's what he needs to work on is his passing, and these are passing drills to tell, what they are. I'm not sure, he's not going to be that great in practice, just looking at him, which is something, he should be working on. He should have hired, well, I don't know if he did, whatever, quarterback coach a while ago.
Jalen Hurts had the same problem. I'm not trying to interrupt. I know I am, but Jalen Hurts had the same issue Milroe had with progressions coming out of college. But by the end of the Senior Bowl week, he made 5 out of 6 progressions. Jalen Hurts, Jalen Milroe, very similar situation, but he showed he could make 4 out of 6 progressions. So he's not going to be as good as Hurts, but I could see why there's potential there with his ability.
Yeah. And, with Hurts going in the second round, that makes a lot of sense. I'm not going to back off on my quarterback one until somebody says otherwise, like I said, with the quarterback on Jalen Milroe. The small hands, okay. Yeah, but like I said before, when he gets on the field, he's the most dynamic guy on the field. And
the small hands and the accuracy issues he's had the first 2 days are why I have him in round 3. But there is a possibility a team reaches for him in day 2 or even maybe day 1. But I really only see 3 teams taking him in day 1: the Rams, the Seahawks, and the Steelers. I don't see anybody else taking him in day 1 unless they trade up for him, like the Browns or the Giants or the Raiders. The team like that would have to trade up for him at the end of the first round.
Well, Jalen Milroe, with Lamar Jackson, a lot of people doubted him coming out of college. That's why he was taken at the end of the first round. And, but Milroe has size, compared to him. Milroe is 220, 225 pounds. He's got
Lamar Jackson could make all 6 progressions during his Heisman year, and he even showed that in his draft year too. The problem was he was 6'2", 205. Teams thought he was too small to play the position, and that they completely miscalculated that part of the evaluation process. The other part of it is Greg Roman limited Lamar Jackson's ability to read progressions. He wanted him to make 1 or 2 reads out of 6 and then take off and run if nothing was open. And that worked for Lamar in the early part of his career, like his rookie sophomore years. But after that, that did not work. He kept getting injured.
Yeah.
He kept not meeting team expectations. And then they had to bring in Todd Monken, and Monken has reversed the course, and Lamar has developed more under Monken.
Well, there were 4 quarterbacks taken before Lamar?
Yes. Baker went number 1.
Darnold.
Josh Rosen. Sam Darnold went number 2. I don't know why I said Josh Rosen. He was the 4th guy picked. Josh Allen went after Darnold at 7 with the trade with Tampa, and then Rosen went to the Cardinals.
And like you said, they're going to be overdrafted this year. So, I wouldn't be surprised to see, if the teams have that much of a doubt in him, if he can start going through those progressions and get better as a passer, like today, show out during the game on Saturday.
Yeah.
It's one of those things. So
I'm more confident in Matthew Schaefer than the number 1 pick in this year's NFL draft. It's weird to say that because Matthew Schaefer's an NHL prospect, but he's been through more adversity than Baker Mayfield was in his pre-draft year. Let's look at the resume. His older brother used to kick his ass in hockey when he was a little kid. He wasn't supposed to go number 1 in the OHL draft. Ryan Ruberek, a 2026 center, was, but he went number 1 anyway. Worked his way up to the first line as a rookie for the OHL playoffs. His little brother looked up to him like a superhero. Mom dies of breast cancer. Has mono to begin the year. We find out he's been living with one parent since he was like 5 or whatever. And then he comes back from mono, kicks ass, breaks his collarbone at the World Junior Championships, but he's scheduled to be back for this year's OHL playoffs in March, assuming the Erie Otters make it. So Matthew Schaefer went through all of that shit as a 17, 18-year-old eligible for the NHL draft. I would argue he's gone through more adversity than Baker Mayfield in his pre-draft year. Maybe not Baker Mayfield in his NFL career, but pre-draft, I would argue he's gone through more. But Baker did go through a lot. He lost the starting QB job to Mahomes, had to transfer to Oklahoma. He had the DUI incident leading up to that draft, but still went to the Browns at number 1. But it's close. I would argue, as far as adversity, Matthew Schaefer in this year's NHL draft and Baker Mayfield are 1 and 2 for most adversity endured leading up to their drafts.
Yeah.
And it's not even close. There's not even a close number 3 you can put in that discussion. It's Schaefer, this year's number 1 pick in the NHL draft, and Baker. And those are the top
players that there are players that adversity drives, and there's players that it crumples. And, both the hockey player and Baker Mayfield, those are both the ones, you have any doubt, they have something happen to them. Anyone doubts them, they come back, 200% and do what they do. And that's why, Baker Mayfield was my number 1 quarterback that year, and Josh Allen behind him. And, but that was one thing that I've said a lot.
Adversity into account in the player evaluations, and that's what they get wrong sometimes.
Yeah, and it's like Tanner McKee coming out. I mean, he didn't have bad adversity, but he's a cancer survivor. Had a bunch of things going on with it. He was a missionary down in South America. And he just had a bunch of things going on. And he chose that, and then came back, to football after being, one of the top rated prospects coming out. And that kid's got one hell of an arm. Like I said, I mean, he can play, but he, fell because, I mean, the school he was at, for one, the protection, it's just that kind of thing. Tanner McKee can absolutely play football. And it was a hard evaluation, though, to actually, understand, because he has an NFL arm like none other, But it's
Carter
everything
Bear
else
is one of the voices in the Everett Silvertips locker room, because I was looking for line 1 players that are eligible for the NHL draft this summer. We found Carter Bear, a guy who had a 2nd-round grade in the summer, but then we watched his tape. We loved his tape. We found a video of him screaming, "Fuck yeah," coming out of the locker room as he's skating on the ice. You don't see a hockey player bring that type of energy, and it's awesome. We need more of that in hockey, okay? Hockey does not have a player with that kind of passion and enthusiasm. And that's what football fans love about players, athletes.
Yeah,
you don't have to say those exact words, F yeah, but that enthusiasm, that passion, that ability to rally your teammates, it's something you have to be born with, I feel like, to a degree.
Yeah, and hockey used to be so much tougher, too. Back in the day, there was that one guy, he literally died. They had to, with the heart defibrillator, bring him back to life, and he has to go back in the game. He died on the bench, and it's like, oh, wow, but you don't see that anymore. Like you're saying, I mean, this generation coming out, I don't know, they're a little bit softer, but we can't say much, we're the ones who raised them. So,
yeah, we're not playing the game, so we really can't critique them for their toughness, but it's like, you love to see that type of passion, enthusiasm. Because you've seen a few QBs. I think Brady used to say it, let's go, F yeah, when walking out of the tunnel too back in the days. I remember doing it a few times with the Buccaneers. I don't have all the numbers on top of me, but yeah, and there's Tez Johnson. It looked like he was going to get a touchdown, but he dropped a pass.
He's completely underrated. That's one of the ones I was watching this morning in practice yesterday, and he's doing everything he's supposed to be, and I mean, he can easily move up, I feel.
Yeah.
He was running some good routes and getting open, some clean routes. There were a few other ones, too, like, we were talking about Jaden Higgins for a minute, if you're going to move him up. And he had an excellent day yesterday, excellent routes, good hands. I mean, the guy was doing everything he's supposed to,
Yep.
There were a few players that definitely stuck out, and he was one of them. Then we were talking about Josh Connerly Jr., and LSU, and about that time, freaking Mike Green, Marshall comes along and knocks him on his ass, blows him straight up, and it's like, oh, well, he was doing good. Maybe he can do good the next play, No one should be judged on one pass rush, bull rush where the guy got up under him, but
yeah,
shouldn't allow it to happen.
And there's a lot of players in this draft where, you're looking for certain types of players in terms of their skill sets. And I think I've updated every position except the defensive tackle rankings. I haven't found a replacement for Dante Corleone. Riley Mills, some were saying he was going to go back to school. He did declare for the draft. But I'm just trying to figure out what defensive tackle we're going to put in to replace Dante Corleone with. I could go Alfred Collins. I mean, Alfred Collins is a guy a lot of scouts love, but I don't think he's as good as the two Texas defensive tackles in last year's draft, Byron Murphy and he's good, but like Byron Murphy and because remember, Alfred Collins rotated with both Byron Murphy and the Tavondre Sweat last year.
There you go, Sweat.
Yeah, they had Texas had two really good defensive tackles in the 24 draft in Murphy and Sweat. And I remember Collins was the DT3 last year. He started as a full-time starter this year, but a lot of people think Collins is DT1.
Yeah, and I don't doubt that. You know, Texas always has good linemen.
So the easiest fix would probably be just put, Alfred Collins somewhere in there. Probably just swap those two out. That would probably be the easiest fix if we just swap Corleone out. I know it's kind of lazy, but I really can't think of anything else we could do, William, as far as like improving the defensive tackle rankings. So cause some have Alfred Collins in round 1. Well, if we just put him in round 2 where we had Corleone, I feel like that swap, that fix, that kind of
I feel that's kind of fair. I've seen all over the internet, the defensive tackle rankings are all over the place.
Yeah,
you know,
that's
people
true.
aren't agreeing on much there.
So
you know, I've seen Nolan all the way down in the third, fourth round.
At DT7 and Riley Mills at DT8. And that'll be Nazir Stackhouse, Junior Tafuna, Derek Harmon, Caldwell, Tonka Hemingway, Ty Hamilton, Nash Huckmacher, Devin Van, Thor Griffith, Cam Jackson. I think is Cam Jackson in this draft, the Florida defensive tackle? I think he is. I think he was at the Senior Bowl.
Sounds familiar.
Yes, he is at the Senior Bowl, and so is Yaya Black, DT7 or DT20, who's my only round 7 defensive tackle. It's a very deep defensive tackle draft, especially with Yaya
and Black can play.
Black can play. Yeah.
So, I saw him pushing some offensive linemen around. So yeah, that was a day one, I think.
Yep.
You know, back in the day.
So exactly. Outside linebacker rankings, I only posted 10, but I had James Pierce as outside linebacker 1, Jihad Campbell as outside linebacker 2. We're going to replace Harold Perkins with Mike Green. Mike Green has been fantastic, and Mike Green's 251 pounds. I know he's an edge rusher, but if you're not 270 pounds or 260 pounds, I look at you and I say you're probably a 34 outside linebacker. Even if you can play with your hand in your dirt, teams are going to want you to add more muscle. If you're
they were saying he looked a lot lighter as well.
Yeah, he did. He looked like he added more muscle versus regular weights. And I had Abdul Carter in round 3, but that's not happening. He's not falling that far. So we're going to move Abdul Carter up to outside linebacker 1. He's probably going to be the first one off the board now. And we'll move Pierce down to 2. We'll keep his round 1 grade, but we'll move him down to outside linebacker 2. Jihad Campbell will move down to outside linebacker 3. He had a good game versus Will Campbell, but I view him as a second-round player more than a first-round player. I view Mike Green as a third-round player, but yeah, regardless of how you perceive him, he had a very dominant week to the point where he's going to get picked very early in the draft, maybe even before where I'm projecting him, because I do think Nick Jackson, Barrett Carter could have higher ceilings. The problem is Mike Green's probably going to get picked somewhere in round 1 or 2, maybe round 3 if there's some character concerns or something happens later, but that feels like a worst case scenario right now with how he performed this week.
Yeah. And like we mentioned, he's a hell of a player. Some of these scouts are going to be like, oh, wait, did I miss him? You know, being at Marshall or something.
Yeah.
Probably shouldn't.
He dominated against Ohio State's right tackle. I don't know why he had a 75 for an overall rating. EA Sports really effed that up. But yeah, Woody Johnson, you can't rely on EA Sports ratings. You got to look at the tape. You got to look at the production. Green's had some good reps against Connerly too at the Senior Bowl. So that's the other thing you're looking at. He does, even if he's a floor player, he's a floor player who will make an impact as a situational edge rusher. So
yeah, and you can never have too many of those.
Yeah. So I'm going to keep these outside linebacker rankings as they are. Colin Oliver, I think he declared, or if did he go back to school? I don't think he did. Colin Oliver, yeah, he's at the Senior Bowl. He's wearing a hamstring brace, but he's there.
Must be going for interviews.
Yeah, a lot of these guys are going for interviews. Mohamed Toure. So basically, all the outside linebacker rankings. I'm not as high on the outside linebackers as other people are, but there are people that it's going to be an interesting draft because I feel like there are some guys who have low floors and high ceilings, like Nick Jackson, Iowa, Barrett Carter, Clemson, Jason Henderson, Old Dominion, but you also have guys who are steady. Mike Green out of Marshall is one of those players that is steady. He is steady in the sense that he's not a high ceiling player, but he's a high floor player. He's going to provide somewhat of an impact. So
that's one thing about Barrett Carter too, is, I've heard his name for years now, but it's like he hasn't shown up, being at Clemson. That's kind of one thing, but
so do you want a floor player that's consistent, or do you want a ceiling player that is inconsistent, high ceiling player that's very inconsistent? Yeah, they might reach their potential, but they're going to need time to develop. Like, the thing is with Shedeur Sanders, yes, he has the highest ceiling in the draft. He's made all 6 progressions. He's only done it twice, once at Jackson State, once in a spring training game with Colorado. That's a scrimmage. That's not a game. That's a scrimmage. So can he do that consistently at the NFL level, even if he becomes the player scouts think he's going to be? The answer is no. We both know that's a hard no, not a debatable no. We know that's a hard, firm no. And
yeah, that name's driven him so far, and it's like, but I mean, what if you want to bring up the elephant in the room, which is his brother at the Shrine Bowl practices? I mean, that dude got burned a lot.
He
did. I mean, that's all over, and it's like, that's why you're saying he wasn't invited to the Senior Bowl, and that's probably a good reason, and that's just one of those things where he just wasn't. I don't know what they were doing with that Colorado defense. Well, the Colorado defense wasn't playing a whole lot of times anyways. But back to, I wish them both the best, though, I mean, but when you get on the stage, you got to shine. And I think that name's been too much for those kids, because I don't think it's just one of those football families that, it's not like the Matthewses or, them where, or the Mannings, where it doesn't matter, father, son, cousin, brother, they're all good. I mean, there's football families like that, but it's a whole lot rarer,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? What else was I going to say?
Yeah, I'm looking at some of these tight ends. Elijah Arroyo. I'm looking at some of these tight ends.
Yeah, the tight ends.
Elijah Arroyo. I'm going to do a little bit more research on him. Go ahead, though.
One that popped up, though, was Terrence Ferguson. He had some good wins yesterday. I can see him be a lot more physical, like I was saying, box out defenders better, but he was getting open, and he was, getting to the point where, the quarterback could throw the ball to him, and he would go get it.
I'm not a fan of Bringstool. I have a round 7 grade on Bringstool, a round 6 grade on Bartholomew, but I'm going to move Elijah Arroyo into the rankings, and I'm going to move Bartholomew out. I'm going to move Bringstool out, because I thought Bartholomew looked good enough to stay in the rankings, but I also think Arroyo did well to the point where You know, Arroyo's probably a top 15 tight end now. Elijah Arroyo. I don't think his ceiling's very high, but he had a good week in Mobile. So I feel like at this point, I got to put him in the rankings. It'd be irresponsible if I didn't. Because Arroyo
Isaiah
attention.
Thomas got Isaiah Thomas got, however you say that, Thomas. I saw him in the cornerback drills, and he got burned a few times. You know, he was out there doing some work, and he was definitely trying hard, but he just wasn't good in that, you know, press man coverage.
Yeah.
And that's not entirely his fault, because no one was really popping in that coverage yesterday. You know,
Yeah.
where it's just straight up them against a wide receiver. You know, give me just a minute, bro. I'll be right back.
Starting to see some practices here. Dylan Gabriel hands it off to Damian Martinez. Damian Martinez is off to the races, and it's a touchdown. Damian Martinez. So Deontay Lawson's coming back to Alabama. Smile.
Was that about a touchdown?
Damian Martinez, he got a touchdown while you stepped away for a few seconds. Damian Martinez, the Miami running back.
Nice. Yeah, that's one of those running backs. He's going to fall back in the pack a little bit, you know, because of the top load of this offense.
Yeah, and because I had a round 3 grade on Deontay Lawson, and he's going back to Alabama, I think that creates a ripple effect where Jay Higgins probably moves into round 3, and that means Mondin probably Mondin's probably going to go in round 4, but I don't know who's next after Mondin, because Maoga, I've got a borderline starter grade on Maoga and Eccles, but I'm not really excited about this middle linebacker group after Eccles. I look at most of these inside linebackers and see NFL backups. So I'm just trying to think what middle linebacker you want to add to this group of 10.
Yeah, the middle linebackers coming out the last few years. The last few classes hasn't been, you know, heavy at all in middle linebackers. You know, we had Drew Sanders and Jack Campbell. You know,
yeah, there's not really a linebacker that checks off all the boxes as far as pass rushing, run stuff, and coverage. The last guy I felt that did that was Jack Campbell, and I had a second round grade on him, but he went in the first round. The Lions took him in the first round, which kind of surprised me. I'm not going to fault the pick because he did win the Butkus Award, but I wasn't expecting to go that early.
I wasn't either, and Gibbs was the same way. You know, there were better running backs, you know, that have been had later in the draft in the first round. But I did mention, you know,
I expected Gibbs to go in round 1. I just didn't expect him to go at 12. I thought he'd go in the back half of round 1.
Yeah, and I saw his potential and all that. I still had, you know, a second on him, and I had a second on Campbell. But Dan Campbell got his guys, and that was one thing, you know, I mentioned it at Daniel Kelly. I was like, I do like that fact. He stuck there. He got his guys, you know, the ones he wanted. And he's been doing wonders with this team the last few years, you know, compared to the last 50, you know, since Bobby Lane.
Yep. And we're seeing some running plays here. Elgersma calling some plays.
But, you know, you mentioned, you know, Barrett Carter having a high ceiling, and that's one of those things. Like I said, that's another one that needs to come up with, you know, be consistent, and maybe it was just lack of good players around him, you know.
And there's a touchdown. Lane, the Virginia Tech receiver, scores a touchdown.
I hadn't seen him yet. Now that I think about it, who's the other one from Virginia Tech?
They've got 2 Virginia Tech receivers in this group.
Belton, that came up when you were talking about wide receiver rankings at the end. And,
I'm probably going to look at some of the SEC weapons. I'm going to look at some of the SEC middle linebackers that are in the next practice, because I don't really see a guy that's a true middle linebacker on the national team in this first practice. So I'm trying to find, and they're listing linebackers, but not middle linebackers. And that's really irritating me because I want a true Mike. Jack Kaiser's a true Mike linebacker. He's not in my rankings. I probably should add him to the middle linebacker rankings because I don't think I have Kaiser in the rankings at all. And he did have the interception. Yeah, we're gonna add Kaiser. He had the interception on Milrow, if you remember yesterday. So that's probably who we'll add. And I would argue, I think his ceiling's higher than Monden's, but lower than Higgins. So we'll put Kaiser in as middle linebacker 4. That's a good call, William. Tough decision, tough thought process, but I think that's the right call.
Yeah. He's a guy who's been around a few years now and has, tried to make
and he intercepted Milrow yesterday. That's not easy to do.
First interception of the Senior Bowl.
Interception of the Senior Bowl. And, that's not easy to do. And he got Notre Dame to the title game, so I think we'll put him in as the replacement player to. So that's 7 middle linebackers with starting potential, and then pretty much everything else stays the same. All right, that's 8. Sinclair 9. Yep, 9, 10. So perfect. I think all these middle linebackers ended up staying, but I'll look up the names. I'll look up the names to make sure they either stayed or entered the portal. If they didn't, I'll have more work to do, but I'm pretty certain they either stayed or ended up Sam Brumfield. Yeah. He played at Middle Tennessee State, transferred to Virginia Tech. Is he transferring to Memphis? This looks like he transferred from Virginia Tech to Memphis. Let's see here. Am I going to have to replace Brumfield, my middle linebacker 10? Because
it's kind of a lateral.
That is a lateral move. 901. Welcome to the 901. Tigers on a mission. And it's silver and blue. Black, silver, and blue. Those are Memphis colors.
Yep.
So he moved from Virginia Tech to Memphis. So I got to put a new middle linebacker in the rankings. Shoot.
Good old Vince Turner is from 901.
Brumfield will be a guy to watch in next year's class. He will. He'll be a guy to watch in next year's class. There's no question about that. I just dislike having to put a new player in the rankings this late in the process. It's just, we'll see how this goes, though. Auburn.
Actually, what I had written down for Jackson Dart was CBS is trying to pump Jackson Dart and ignore the red flags. That sounds just like a relationship,
They're trying to hype somebody up. This class does not have anybody worth hyping up after the top 2 QBs, and everyone's doing it, William. Everyone's trying to hype up a guy. Even Orrin, the co-host of Utopia Football Insider, he's saying that Will Howard, Riley Leonard could go day 2. He's just saying that because there's not a clear-cut third guy after the top 2 this year, and it's not a good QB draft in my opinion. I think Cam Ward's the only day 1 starter, and Shadur and Ewers are like Penix and Drake May. They could start as rookies, but they need at least a few weeks to learn the playbook on the bench. They need at least 4 to 13 weeks. Depends on the time frame. It depends on how frequently you develop the QB.
Yeah. And last year had Bo Nix go in the first round, and I was hearing him talk this morning, and they're saying, "Oh yeah, we didn't think he was a round 1 pick," and it was like, okay, and it's like, well, then tell me why you're trying to pump up Dylan Gabriel now, and he did,
I've had a third on Gabriel, but that was before the game where he played like crap against Ohio State. He's been steady this week, but he hasn't blown me away.
Yeah. And then they had the 74 miles an hour on that pass, which was just a glitch. That's just utterly impossible, considering
Is Cody
what was it,
Lindenberg a
Joe
middle
Milton
linebacker?
did.
Because I'm thinking about adding him into the rankings, the Minnesota linebacker. Is he a Mike? Is he a pure Mike? Because if he is, that's probably who I'll end up adding.
Oh no, you put me on the spot, and I don't know.
I guess I'll have to do some research on Cody Lindenberg. I really should be more prepared with this. But yeah, I'm just trying to get as much data finalized as possible so that when we get to the combine, it's easier for me to transition.
That's for sure. That's the one thing, this week before the practice is so much more than the game, because quarterbacks are only going to get, maybe a quarter apiece, things like that. They're not going to get much time to put on there. And, this is one thing if Dart and Milrow are going to do something.
Yeah, and now my freaking Google Chrome is frozen. I'm just trying to X out some stuff. I'm just trying to X out some stuff so people can see the stream. All right, Cody Lindenberg, football player. Here we go. Is he a Mike linebacker? Like what? I've got a magazine. Why am I Googling this? I have a freaking Phil Steele magazine that will give me the data I need to know. Why am I Googling this? What the hell is wrong with me? I've had a resource in front of me this entire time, and yes, Lindenberg's a middle linebacker. What the hell is wrong with me, William? Had the resources in front of me this whole time, and I've just neglected them.
I feel you, man. I feel you.
Yeah.
Let me get this cleaned up here. I'm gonna move my.
All right, so Cody Lindenberg will be the final linebacker replacing the Virginia Tech guy, and we'll put him in round 7 of the rankings. This is all subject to change. A lot of it's going to depend on how NFL teams feel, but this is just where I would rank each guy right now. But yeah, front 7's done, offensive line's done, offense is done. Just got to edit and tweak the cornerback, safety, kicker, and punter rankings. So most of the grunt work is done, which is good.
Good. I like to hear it, Chris.
Yeah. Who went back? Maxwell Hairston, Siobhan Revel, Jabbar Muhammad, Denzel Burke, Jordan Hancock. I think Hancock declared for this draft, or I think he's a senior. I can look that up. I think Hancock is a senior, but he could end up going back. Hancock announced Friday that he will enter the draft. Okay. So Hancock's in the draft. Ricardo Hallman. I'm pretty sure Ricardo Hallman is in the draft too. He was a senior at Wisconsin with Hunter Wohler. Yeah. Kobe Bryant's in the draft. Dorian Strong. Jason Marshall
Another
Jr.
Kobe Bryant? That's like, what, the 3rd or 4th?
Yeah, Kansas corner, Kobe Bryant. Joey said he dominated the Shrine Bowl. Joey thought he was at the Senior Bowl, but I Googled it. He's at the Shrine Bowl. So Joey's been watching the Shrine Bowl online behind our backs, which is very good. We're going to reward that because that's good stuff. We appreciate it. We appreciate that.
Doing work.
Yeah.
I didn't mind, Kobe Bryant coming out of Kansas,
Yeah, the Shrine Bowl is tonight.
Right.
The Shrine Bowl is tonight on NFL Network.
Good stuff.
8 p.m.
Eastern.
Eastern.
They got his name spelled different.
Justin Wally, Keontae Scott, Trey Amos, Brandon Adams, Tommy Hill, Jordan Olakun, Tony Grimes, Mark Davis Jr., Devin Kirkwood. It feels like some of these guys either entered the portal. I probably should double check, but most of the guys we looked up are seniors. So
yeah. I
don't think they neglected the draft, but I'm wondering how many of them entered the portal. Like,
they need to get that stuff figured out too, because they tamper like none other,
And Auburn Tigers lose veteran corner to the corner. Auburn Tigers lose veteran corner to the portal. After 3 seasons, Keontae Scott has entered the portal for his final season of eligibility.
Draft.
So yes, according to this, he did enter the portal. He's transferring to Houston. So Keontae Scott's going to Houston. I had a 5th round grade on Keontae Scott, but a lot of these college players have the same mentality. 1st round grade or more money. 1st round grade or more fucking money. More money.
Right.
And you could say it's not an entitlement problem, but that's kind of what it is. Till they're guaranteed the 1st round money, they'd rather stay in college. That's their decision. We're not going to judge either way, and I know it sounds like I'm being judgmental, but the reality is that's what most players are going to do. They're going to look and say, can I go in the 1st or 2nd round? Okay, I can't. More money. Let's get more money, because they're angry. They're pissed off. But yeah, Keontae Scott, I'm going to have to take him out of the cornerback rankings and add someone else in. So that's an opening. Identifying all these openings is important, because if you don't identify those openings, then by draft day, you're going to screw up when the underclassmen deadline or the senior deadline comes around. And with the portal, it just complicates things more, William, to the point where you're just pissed off when these things happen. But yeah, I'm just going to move Trey Amos ahead of him. But Azaria Thomas, is Azaria Thomas out of Florida State? Is he actually what is his how do teams feel about Azaria Thomas? Because I think he's at the Senior Bowl this year. Okay, he has an 88 for potential. He has an 88 rating. There are some people that have Azaria Thomas in the 1st round. I like Thomas. I don't like him that much, but that seems like the perfect guy to replace Keontae Scott with in the rankings.
Yeah, and I mentioned him earlier. He was doing some work, but he was still getting beat. But like I said, it just didn't complement him very well. The press man coverage like they had going. But it's the only way to, really see what they got one-on-one.
Yeah, and I would put him where I have Dalen Everett. I have a round 5 grade on Dalen Everett, but I think this is just such a deep cornerback class. And you could argue, I think there's guys with higher ceilings, but not necessarily the talent or the skill set. I'll put him at cornerback 14 ahead of Jason Marshall, the Florida corner, who I also have in the 4th round. So we'll put him. And then Dalen Everett will be cornerback 16. Vaughn will be 17. Wally will be 18. And then Trey Amos will be cornerback 19. And then Brandon Adams, cornerback 20, is the only 6th round corner. And corners 21 through 25 are all 7th rounders for me. So I don't think any of these other corners transferred, but I should probably still double check, because it just feels irresponsible if I don't double check. I
see Azaria Thomas here ranked as a outside press man corner.
Yep.
Okay.
Azaria Thomas.
5 feet according to this.
Yeah. It's just what guys, when we do these cornerback rankings on the show, what guys enter the draft, what guys enter the portal, because the portal is another factor, another part of this. And it's a part of this that a lot of people take for granted, or take, Jordan Oladokun, Bowling Green corner, Mark Davis Jr., Vanderbilt corner. Those guys scream portal. If they're late round picks, they scream portal players. So got to check to make sure you have the right information sometimes. But they're showing the Shrine Bowl. They're showing the Shrine Bowl stuff. Okay, so Jordan Oladokun tweeted Mackey, and I don't know if he's coming back or not, or if he's going to the draft, because he's retweeting the Senior Bowl stuff. but he's also posting. Nope, he declared. Ola DeCoon declared for the draft. The Bowling Green corner. I think Grimes is in the draft. Tony Grimes. So Mark Davis Jr. No relation to the Raiders owner, but there's a Mark Davis Jr. at Vanderbilt. He's a corner. No relation to the Raiders owner. That would be funny if he was the kid of the Raiders owner. That would be pretty funny though. I'm wondering if he's going to get a medical red shirt because he tore his Achilles on August 10th. Ooh. I wonder if he's got a medical red shirt. I'm wondering if I'm going to have to take Mark Davis Jr. out of the cornerback rankings and he medical red shirts because I think that's where we're at, William. I think Mark Davis Jr. out of Vanderbilt is going to have a medical red shirt probably because he tore his ACL before his senior year at Vanderbilt. I don't think he's going to declare for the draft. I think he's going to take a medical red shirt. I could be wrong, William, but I have heard nothing about him as far as draft content goes. So I think he's probably going to do a medical red shirt if I had to take a hypothesis, an educated guess.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it. That's what a lot of them do anymore.
He could theoretically be in this draft, but I've heard nothing from him. I'm probably going to replace him with a corner at the Senior Bowl. That's kind of where I'm at. And then I think let's look up Devin Kirkwood, make sure he's in the draft before we Kirkwood. Yep. Kirkwood, a beloved son, is pursuing something bigger than himself. So Devin Kirkwood's in the draft. We just have to replace Mark Davis Jr. We don't have to. It's probably best if we do because if you tear your ACL when you transfer to a bigger school from like a smaller school to Vanderbilt, because he transferred from Southern Illinois to Vanderbilt. Yeah, he is definitely doing a medical red shirt then if that's the case. Because
the Salukis,
if you transfer from the Salukis to Vanderbilt, that is and then you tear your ACL at Vanderbilt, you are definitely going back to college to prove scouts you deserve to be a late round pick, if anything. Because he
had a couple interceptions and a few passes defended, but he didn't have a very light up year, so I can definitely see him going back.
It's not that I don't think he'll declare. I just think he's more likely to go back at this point. And there's other corners at the Senior Bowl that are getting more. Is Tommy Hill the Nebraska? I think I already have Tommy Hill in the rankings, though. Yeah, I do. I already have Tommy Hill in the rankings, so I can't really re-enter him in the rankings. That's what sucks. I have Quincy Riley in the rankings. Senior Bowl cornerbacks. Let's see what we got here. Top 5 cornerbacks to watch at the Senior Bowl, College Football Network, the subsidiary to Pro Football Network. Let's see. Dorian Strong in my rankings. Darian Porter, Iowa State. I did not put him in my rankings, but Porter played with TJ Tampa at Iowa State. That's probably the name I'll put in. Yeah. We'll go with him.
Oh, okay.
Darian, that's a good name to go with, William, you know? Darian Porter. Iowa State corner. He played with TJ Tampa. That's a good name to go with. And then the quarterback rankings are done. Corners.
Yeah, TJ Tampa came out and balled out a little bit.
Yep.
I did see some high rankings on him coming out of.
So almost done with this. I'm going to leave the kicker and punter rankings the same. I don't think I need to tweak those because there's only 5 of them, and the odds of one of those kickers going back to school or entering the portal is very low because I put mainly seniors in my rankings. I did not put underclassmen in my rankings because Harrison Mevis. But Michigan's got a corner. Michigan's got a kicker next year that's projected to go in the top 100. I'm not kidding you. Michigan's got another top 100 kicker next year. A kicker that went 7 for 7 and 50-yard field goals. 7 for 7 and 50.
Okay, Kyle Shanahan. This one's for Kyle Shanahan. Don't do it again. You know, I mean, the last Michigan kicker that came out, I went top 100.
I interviewed that kicker at the East-West Shrine Bowl. It was the MVP of the bowl game I went to in Vegas. He was the MVP kicker. I know it's hard to believe, but
oh, I believe it. No, good kicker, but it's just not going to be with San Francisco anymore.
And there's another Michigan kicker that went 7 for 7 on 50-yard field goals, and he's only a sophomore. Everybody's saying he's going to declare next year and go in the top 100.
The one thing that I saw with Jake
Have
Moody,
we not learned anything from drafting Jake Moody as early as we drafted him, NFL? I don't think we have.
Exactly. And I watched Jake Moody, and every time he kicks it, he is kicking the living out of it. And it's like, dude, take a little bit off, get your accuracy down. It's like playing baseball. I was a pitcher. That was the first thing. You get your accuracy down, and then you add the speed to it. And everything I see, it was crushing. Like, it's like a quarterback that throws a hard ball every time. They can't get the accuracy down. I mean, it's not a good look. And with the kickers that came out and everything else, I didn't question that pick until he really started missing things and becoming consistent and missing kicks.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure none of the safeties went back to school. Watts, Starks, Castro, Billy Bowman, Nwangpa, Malachi Moore, Jonas Sanker, Kevin Winston, Hunter Wohler, Rod Moore, Nick Eamon Worry, Dante Trader Jr., Elijah Clark, Lathan Ransom, Bud Clark. I'm fairly certain all of those safeties are in the draft.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think any of those guys went back to school or entered the portal.
No, there's definitely a few of them. There's some good names on there. I'm looking at them right now.
So I'm happy I do not have to tweak the safety, kicker, or punter rankings. That means my work is done and I can get back to watching these drills and having fun.
Yes, sir. Mellow out, Chris.
Yeah, I'm just Xing out some tabs before I come beam. That's all I'm doing at this point. I'm not saying no anything. I'm just,
Oh, man, they spelled his name wrong. They spelled Lathan Ransom's name wrong on here.
Ransom. How did they spell his name?
With an N at the end of Ransom. Different than that.
That happens a lot. That's happened to me sometimes. Like, name called, it says Ransom, secretary or something of a doctor's office is Ransom. That's happened to me sometimes too, by the way. So I can empathize with Lathan Ransom in that respect.
I got you. And the M is right next to the N. So, if somebody doesn't read proofread their work. That was one thing I learned my lesson on with Cooper DeJean. I had the wrong Yanish report on him somehow. I got sent into the editor. And but other than that, I got the pick right. I just didn't get that part right.
Ole Gordon runs through the defenders. Touchdown, Ole Gordon.
Nice.
It's almost like Oklahoma. Did Nick Martin intentionally miss this tackle? Because Oklahoma State missed the tackle and let Gordon score on the play to try to help his stock. Was that Nick Martin that did that? Because Martin kicked ass yesterday. He's taking a dive to help Ole Gordon get drafted. I see what's going on here. I'm going to call it like I see it. I don't care if that pisses off Mike Gundy. I'm going to call it like I see it. Nick Martin missed a tackle to help Ole Gordon boost his stock.
Man, take one for the team, bro. Yeah. I don't know. I don't think Gordon has much to do with that. I mean,
there's Ole Gordon pass blocking. Very good job pass blocking, but the QB held on to the ball for like 8 seconds. And this isn't Caleb Williams. This is a quarterback from Canada. You can't hold on to the ball for 8 seconds unless you're Mahomes or Allen or Caleb Williams, or you can't hold on to the ball for 8 seconds and wait that long to execute a screen pass, Elgersma. That's just not going to cut it in the NFL. That was just a bad job by the QB on that play. So Monheim's the center. Jalen Rivers is the right guard, I think. Trapillo's the right tackle. Monheim's the center. Colby Connor and Connerly. And here he's just 4 or 5 seconds. He's trying to be Caleb Williams, and he's just not making the reads. The defense is just doing a good job.
That's a good thing, man.
Yeah. And look, Monheim was able to buy him some time, but the Toledo defensive tackle got by Connerly on that play.
So that's
And to
2
be
on
fair, he
Conley.
threw an accurate ball, but the Washington State receiver. A lot of these guys are shaking hands. Are they going to end practice early? I can't tell if they're going to end practice early or not, because when they have this look after the drill, it's usually an IOI that they're going to end practice early. What's your battery at, William?
Let me check. It's not doing bad, actually. Today, anyhow. I'm at 54%.
Okay. Because if they don't do any drills after this commercial, I'm cool with ending now and then coming back at 2. Because if we come back at 2, we probably can get through the 2 hours if you charge your phone from now until 2.
No. Yeah, I
It's
should
up
be
to
able to.
you. I'm just
I
thinking
got my computer.
logistically. I'm just thinking logistically how we go about this. Because
Yeah, we can wrap it up. I can grab some breakfast and then just come back at, like you said, too, which is what, 40
I
minutes?
don't think we need to wrap it up. But at the same token, if we're going to get through the next show from 2 to 4, whenever the practice is, without your phone dying, we might be better off wrapping it up now, because you charge your phone, get it up to 60, 70%, and you can grab some breakfast too. So I am playing the long game here as well. It's not that I don't want to wrap it up. It's that I think the practice is over, but I could be wrong. Once your phone gets to 50%, notify me, because if it gets to 50% in the practice, they don't do another drill, we'll end the show. Because if they don't, if NFL Network decides to torture us with commercials and William's phone gets below 50%, I'm gonna end the show. That's just where I'm at mentally. I'll wait a few more minutes, but if Williams' phone gets to 50% or lower and they're still airing commercials, sorry, NFL Network, we're ending the first stream early to prepare for the second one. You're not going to torture us with commercials. You're not going to hold us hostage and air shitty Chipotle commercials when Moe's Southwest burritos are better than Chipotle. Moe's is better than Chipotle. I'm going to die on that hill. I'm not going to say anything bad about Chipotle, but
wait until they start having commercial breaks for the Senior Bowl.
They're going to have
TV timeouts like the
a
NFL.
Lucky Charms commercial again. The third day in a row you've aired this commercial, General Mills. I want a commercial with General Mills mascots versus the Kellogg's mascots playing football, and I want the Kelsey brothers playing for the Kellogg's of the General Mills All-Star team. And if there's any NFL athletes that do Kellogg's ads, you guys go out and get them and make a Kellogg's versus General Mills Super Bowl ad. It'll be incredible. And you can promote all the cereals. You can promote Frosted Flakes. Don't eat Trix. Eat Frosted Flakes. They're great. You could have Tony the Tiger sacking the Trix rabbit. I mean, just the marketing potential would be incredible. You'd be promoting all of the cereals by having the cereal mascots play a football game.
Where the hell are these tight end rankings coming from? I'm seeing here they've got freaking different. I'm not sure where the hell this is coming from on Bing. Tyler Warren, Colson Loveland, Mason Taylor, Terrence Ferguson, and then Harold Fannin Jr.
The tight end rankings are going to vary, William, because at the beginning of the year, I had Gadsden as tight end 3. Then I had Mitchell Evans, Notre Dame as tight end 3. Then I had Mason Taylor as tight end 3. And then I went back to Gadsden. So the rankings are going to vary. And now I've got Fannin in the top 3 with Warren. So the rankings are going to vary at tight end.
For the tight end rankings, everyone, we still have like 4 months before the draft. 3 months.
I think the top 3 is locked up.
Will.
Number 4 is sort of a toss-up between a number of tight ends. I
will have it straight by the time it's over.
Yeah, Fannin, Loveland, and Warren, I think, have locked up the top 3 spots. Yeah. But Mason Taylor, Gadsden, Terrence Ferguson, Mitch Evans, there are a number of guys that could end up getting that spot.
The one thing that's going to be on these tight end rankings, it's kind of like the outside linebacker rankings. You know, there are different tight ends. And
if Mason Taylor is Jason Taylor's son and Joy Taylor is Jason Taylor's sister, wouldn't that make Joy Taylor of FS1 the aunt of Mason Taylor by that logic? Would she be his aunt by that logic?
Yeah.
Okay. Just curious. Not critiquing anyone in the Taylor family, just double checking the rules of the family tree.
Right. No, Mason Taylor. Oh, what was he doing the other day? He showed out a little bit. Um, where the hell was he at? Let me look that up. It wasn't now I got a damn computer in front of me. I know he definitely has a possibility to move up, and we were talking yesterday about the players that are, the coaches' sons and players' sons. These kids have been groomed,
Cooper
since they were
Witten
little
is Cooper Witten's a safety. I think he's Jason Witten's son. He is in the 2026 recruiting class for high school football. Cooper Witten. He's a safety, but he's Jason Witten's son. We're getting old. I mean, Larry Fitzgerald's son is a junior in high school already. I'm not kidding you. Larry Fitzgerald's son's a junior in high school already. We are getting old. I am anyway. You might still be in your 20s, but I'm 34. I still look the same compared to when I was a teenager as far as the hair goes, but it's like I'm getting old. I mean,
I've got a minute on you, bro. I definitely have a minute on you. Like, about 9.5 years on you. That's just because I look good, and that's one thing like this. It's an ode to bust quarterbacks, in the NFL.
Yeah,
Jimmy Clausen,
Bettis' son's going to be a freshman at Notre Dame next year. Devin Fitzgerald is got an offer for Arizona State, and I think there's another player on the same team as Larry Fitzgerald's son. There's another player on Devin Fitz. It's Donovan McNabb's son is on the same team as Larry Fitzgerald's son in Arizona. I'm not kidding you. I swear that is and Devin Fitzgerald's only a 3-star recruit, but he has a 3.7 GPA. I don't know why I'm talking about high school football. I just think it's cool that so UNLV and Cornell have made Devin Fitzgerald offers. So is Arizona State and Boston College. But I know I think Donovan McNabb's son and Devin Fitzgerald are both teammates on the yeah, they are. Brophy College Preparatory High School. Their two receivers are Donovan McNabb Jr. and Devin Fitzgerald. The sons of McNabb and Larry Fitzgerald are their teammates on a high school football team. Isn't that crazy? Donovan McNabb and Larry Fitzgerald's sons are both wide receivers on a high school football team. That's nuts. And they're both juniors, so they'll both be in the 29 NFL draft, I believe, if they declare as juniors. Probably 2030, though, if they stay all 4 years in college, stay all 4 years in college. But that's crazy to think that that's actually happening.
Yeah, for real. Back to Jason.
Back to college football. We got some Senior Bowl drills. Looks like they are going to do a new drill. But my guess is it is the final set of drills. And they better start the drill soon, because I'm guessing Williams' phone's at 51% right now. They better start this one-on-one drill pretty damn soon. This is like a 24 episode. Okay, here we go. It is Hill versus the Virginia Tech receiver, wide receiver DB drills. And who made that throw to the Virginia Tech receiver? That was just a very bad throw. I'm not even blaming the Virginia Tech receiver for not catching it. That was just an awful throw. I mean, whoever made that throw, congratulations. You just caused Mike Kafka to get pissed off. Because Mike Kafka was smiling. He's no longer smiling because that throw was so awful. Congratulations. You've turned Mike Kafka into a boot camp sergeant. That's how much you pissed off Mike Kafka.
They listen to the coach, man.
You don't do that to your offensive coordinator. Especially if you're trying to become the Giants' starting quarterback. They do need a quarterback, by the way.
Who's throwing there for the
Well, it's either Tyler Show, the quarterback from Canada, or Dylan Gabriel.
Probably Gabriel.
Yeah, might be Gabriel. Monheim and Belton. Belton containing Landon Jackson on this play. And everyone's fired up. It's the final day of practice. You got a Jets coach hugging Landon Jackson, trying to give Landon Jackson the kiss of death as far as NFL careers go, because the Jets are just, their track record with drafting has not been good. So if anybody on the Jets is trying to hug you, you need to run. Don't walk, run like Forrest Gump. Run, Forrest, run. You do not want that kiss of death from the New York Jets.
Oh, man, and they went and hired Aaron Glenn. It's like, oh, man, they must have gave him a lot of money.
And Steve Wilks, the former interim head coach with the Panthers, is the defensive coordinator. He was a good defensive coordinator in San Francisco, so I think the Jets' defense is going to be even better than it was under Saleh. The question is the offense going to play at a high level? Because we know the Jets have a good defense. And Sebastian Castro breaks up a pass intended for Harold Fannin Jr. This is why I got a round one grade on Castro, William.
I like it. I like it. Those Iowa players are always tough as hell. It's like, I've said that before at the beginning of the, scouting year. I have to go back and see who's on that team.
But Castro came in at the last minute and broke up the pass. So the lack of speed with Castro really doesn't matter because he made the right play when it mattered.
Yes, sir. How the hell? Dude, they're still saying that about Dylan Gabriel throwing that record-breaking ball. I don't see any way in hell with his lack of arm strength that he can throw a ball 74.9 miles an hour, or however fast it was. They have to figure out a
NFL draft. This is not MLB baseball where we're measuring the velocity or how far they can throw fastballs. This is the NFL draft.
74.9. Yeah, that didn't happen. I don't care who you are. I mean, there had to be a fluke there. Josh Allen and Joe Milton tied for 62 miles an hour?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pat Bryant wide open. Tommy Hill covers him at the last minute, but who's throwing Pat Bryant the ball, or who refused to throw him the ball? Like, is Dylan Gabriel hogging the ball now, not even throwing it in the wide receiver cornerback drill? Because that's just weird. It's like you'd at least expect the pass to be thrown to him.
Yeah, I don't know, maybe somebody got their feathers ruffled by Kafka.
Yep.
But maybe that's what he was trying to do. Maybe he saw that, and that's one thing you got to see about the coaching between the players. How they react, like you were talking the other day. If they got that confidence, or if it can be shook. And if it can be shook, that's not a good look. I think you've said
no, it's not. Actually. I just wish they would list the coaches for this year's game instead of the because they list the players on each roster on the website, but they don't list the coaches. I know Kafka's calling some of the plays, but who are the other coaches calling plays in this? I'm kind of curious. Reese's Senior Bowl announces coaching staffs. Okay. Bubba Ventrone will be Bubba Ventrone, the assistant head coach and special teams coordinator, is the American team coach, and Mike Kafka, the Giants offensive coordinator, is the national team coach.
Yeah, Kafka's a few years from being
and looking at the national team, Packers pass game coordinator Jason Vrabel is the offensive coordinator. Browns defensive line coach Jackie Cesare is the defensive coordinator for the national team, and Perry Carter, the Titans coaching assistant, special teams coordinator. But usually Giants running backs coach Joel Thomas is going to be the American team coordinator. Matt Rake, the senior assistant D-line coach for the Colts, is the defensive coordinator, and 49ers special teams quality control coach August Mangin is the special teams coordinator at the Senior Bowl. So, yeah.
I'm a 49ers fan, and I hadn't heard that name before. They were talking
about the assistant to the special teams coordinator. That's why you haven't heard the name.
Yeah, and he's new. They were talking about moving what's his name down from defensive coordinator Nick Sorensen, but yeah, that didn't happen either. Sorensen got a job under in Dallas, I think, as defensive coordinator under Schottenheimer, if I'm not mistaken. I think I heard that the other day, and I was like, yeah, good riddance. You know, the 49ers, they went with Steve Wilkes and then Nick Sorensen, and they had, what's his name? Staley overlooking the defense, and it wasn't looking that great last year either. Had quite a few injuries, though, so. But we are back to, you know, Robert Saleh, and I like it. You know, I said 2 years ago when Wilkes was messing up like week 2, I was like, yeah, when Saleh gets fired, we'll take him back. And yeah, that's great to at least see that he's got a job, you know. See who else is on this team. I'm not going to put it on the, you know, outside that it wasn't Shug that made that throw. You know, I've seen him throw some into the ground here and there. That just didn't work. But whatever it is, there's definitely a quarterback messing up at practice today. At least it's not Jalen Milrow. I said 25, not 23. Thanks, Zuckerberg. Get Google, man. Let's see if I can pull this up. Everybody's got their stuff on here. Packers, Colts, everyone else. And I think Chris's sound went completely off. Hold on a sec, guys.
I'm back. I'm back in Restream. Should I end it? So I'm going to end this stream. Okay, here they've got Cody Mock playing the violin. Just yeah, Buccaneers 23 second round pick. Yeah, so they're showing replays. They're trying to kill time. I'll wait and see if they do another drill, but if they don't, I am going to end this because yeah, they're interviewing players. Practice is over.